Your dream and the visions on your head upon your bed were these. As for you, O king, thoughts came to your mind while on your bed about what would come to pass after this. And he who reveals secrets has made known to you what will be. But as for me, this secret has not been revealed to me because I have more wisdom than anyone living. But for our sakes, who made known the interpretation to the king, and that you may know the thoughts of your heart. Yet again, how amazing. Daniel's acknowledging that he hasn't been revealed to him because of who he is or that he's something special or anything like that. My thoughts and my interpretation is that Daniel is saying this has been revealed to Daniel so that the king doesn't kill Daniel. Because that's what the decree had been put out, that if none of the wise men turn around and can tell the king what his dream was, then the king had commanded Arachi to kill them all. So Daniel would have been killed if God didn't show him what the vision was. And now we get into Daniel explaining to us what the vision was. You, O king, were watching, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold, and its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You watched while a stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and gold were crushed together, came like chaff from the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away so that no trace of them was found. And the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. It's a pretty vivid image, isn't it? I don't know about you, but if you were dreaming one night and you are seeing this statue, gold, bronze, iron, feet of iron and clay, then it gets smashed, carried away, and completely forgotten. And in your heart, you know that this is something important. Be pretty disturbed as well, wouldn't you? I know I would. And then the next section, we are going to read Daniel start to give an interpretation of what this dream meant. This is the dream. Now we will tell the interpretation of it before the king. You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field, and the birds of the heaven, he has given them into your hand, and made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. But after you shall arise another kingdom inferior to yours, then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all others. Whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with cement clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly iron and partly clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle it with the seed of men, but they will not heed to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to another people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Inasmuch as you saw that stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and gold, the great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. The dream is certain, and the interpretation is sure. That is one intense dream, one intense interpretation. Imagine for a second, you're King Nebuchadnezzar, and you've listened to this dream, and you're being told, hey, you're the head of gold. You're part of this dream. And the end part of it is that everything gets smashed and taken away. No wonder this dream was quite disturbing to him. Now, there's a few very interesting parts about this section. The first part is in the original language, this whole section we've flipped over to it being in Aramaic. I believe Aramaic's the right one. So most of the Old Testament is written in Hebrew. Most of the New Testament, I believe all of the New Testament is written in Greek. And then there's just these few chapters in Daniel that are in another language. They're in Aramaic. And apparently just the odd word or two that's in another language again. Now, I'm not a historian, so I'm just going to make mention of a few comments that when I was listening to other teachers, what they commented on. And I'm not going to go too much into details because, as I said, I'm not a historian. So if I was to go into too much detail, I'm just going to be repeating what these other teachers have said. And the reality is, if I'm going to repeat what they say, you may as well go listen to them because they have an authority to speak on it. I don't. So instead, I'm going to just point out the different things that God has put on my heart. But some of the things they've said are really important, really critical to being able to understand the passage. First part, as I said, this is written in Aramaic. Now, one of the teachers I was listening to, their idea of that was the fact that this is the entire Bible is all about Jesus's story. People have put it down and said his story, as in his story. And that is what the Bible is. It's a history book with a lot of predictions and a lot of prophecies of what is to come as well. But it's all about Jesus. Then we've got this one section in the Bible which has another language. And some of the teachers, as I say, their idea is that this is the Gentiles' history. So in this vision, we are seeing the entire sum up of the history of the world from the Gentile point of view. So take that as you will, because obviously we know there's a lot more history than just 4 kingdoms, but it's saying that the main ruling of the world will be over these 4 different kingdoms until the kingdom of God comes in. Now we know the first kingdom. The first kingdom, it tells us, was Nebuchadnezzar. How powerful, how mighty must King Nebuchadnezzar have been, that he was the head of gold, and that we are told that everyone after him was inferior. Now, any history lesson you've done, you might have learnt about Alexander the Great, the Roman Empire. We look at the English, how they also took over back, what was it, the 1700s, 1800s? I don't know. But when they basically took over most of the world, and it's going, wow, King Nebuchadnezzar was bigger, mightier, stronger, more powerful than any of these other kingdoms that have come afterwards. Now, different other Bible scholars that I've listened to, they think that I believe the second one is meant to be Alexander the Great, a prophecy of, and then they attract, so that's the silver was ascribed to him, and that the bronze was ascribed to like the Roman Empire. Sorry, not the bronze, the iron. Is it the legs of iron? And then, but those sort of two ones, as I say, I'm not a historian. That's what I've been told. We can go back in history and have a look at it. The one that I'm finding quite interesting, fascinating, and I think is quite important for us to really look at. So why those other two ones are important to look at is because when we see that, as they have already happened, we can see how this vision was to be interpreted, because we've got the vision, we've got Daniel's interpretation, and the reality of it has happened. For Daniel, it's a prediction. For us, it's history. We can go back and compare it to each other. But I do believe this fourth kingdom is still one yet to come. Now, the reason why I'd say that it's still one yet to come is because it turns around and says in verse 44, and in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and a kingdom shall not be left to another people. So that verse 44, to me clearly indicates and clearly points to when Jesus is going to set up his kingdom on earth. As I've said in previous studies, I sit on the pre-trib belief. Now, obviously, we're at the beginning of Daniel, so this is building the underlining foundation as to why I'm a pre-trib believer. But in the pre-trib, we would look at this verse and go, hey, this is a initial reference, an initial prophecy to when Jesus, sorry, hair in my eye. An initial prophecy to when Jesus is going to set up his 1,000-year millennial reign in the New Jerusalem. And he's saying that it's a kingdom that's not going to be left to another. So it is the final kingdom. Jesus is one of the 1,000-year millennial reign is going to be the final one that is set up on this earth. But from here, it turns around and it gives that clear indication that it's the fourth kingdom, and then Jesus comes in, that they go back to back, and Jesus comes in and destroys it. So that's why I say I don't think it's happened yet, because we don't fully see that happening at the present time. Now, the other part where people like to make that connection is they go, okay, we've got the legs of iron that have gone into the feet with iron and clay. So the way that a lot of people interpret that, and I say this as a point of interest and more of a for you to meditate and go, do I agree with this interpretation? They're saying that, okay, the legs of iron were the Roman Empire. The fact that comes down into the feet, that means the strength of the Roman Empire has come down into the feet. If we look at history, I think it's probably pretty fair to say we still, in our modern society, see a lot of benefits that we have, a lot of things that we live with that come out of the Roman Empire. I believe things like roads, yet again, not a historian, so people are going to have to chuck in the comments of different things that we have now that are because of the Roman Empire. Yet again, that's one of the common interpretations of the third one. But where that is really, I think it's really important to look at the fourth one and start understanding, going, okay, it's the toes. So that's where we see other prophecies where it turns around and says that the final kingdom, it's going to have sort of 10 heads. then what I find quite interesting here is we see that the iron is mixed with ceramic, sorry, not cement. The iron is mixed with ceramic, so it's partly strong, partly weak. Take that as you will, but I think that whatever interpretation, whatever end times belief you put in, this is a very clear interpretation. This is a very clear prophecy that was given, that we've got to make sure that whatever position we end with end times, it makes sense with this passage, that we're not having to twist it, we're not having to distort it, we're not having to remove words to make our theory make sense. If we have to remove words or add words to make our position make sense, then our position is wrong. And we've got to come back to the Bible and go, what does it say? And when we use the Bible to interpret the Bible, what conclusions do we come to?